at the center of the universe, and that inevitably meant that their descriptions of the heavens were intricate and complicated, with epicycles, deferents, and couples. It was like some great cosmic gearbox. It would require a huge leap of imagination to make the next step in our story. And that next step would take place 2,000 miles from where I am now.
In my view, the last phase of the Mariga Revolution took place not in Iran or anywhere in the Islamic Empire, but here in northern Italy. Based on the work of Muslim scholars, places like the University of Padua were already starting a new scientific movement, the Renaissance.
Back in Padua, where I began my journey, I now understand why Islamic astronomers were so important to Copernicus. They gave him his motivation. He's the first European to share Ibn al-Haytham's deep aversion to Ptolemy's cosmology. And that's what makes Copernicus not the first great astronomer of a new European tradition, but the last of the Islamic tradition.
This is the second edition.
As we've seen, many of the complex mathematical models Copernicus uses in his new heliocentric model, like the Tusi couple, are copied from Islamic astronomers. But more importantly, it's Copernicus's deep desire to bring mathematical consistency to cosmology that he really owes to his Islamic predecessors. Copernicus's ideas set in motion a train of scientific revelations that would eventually lead to Isaac Newton and the discovery of gravity. In Newton's hands, Ibn al-Haytham's dream of an astronomy with rigorous and coherent mathematics, which agrees with experimental observation, finally took place. But this begs two crucial questions. Why was the great astronomical project which Islamic astronomers began completed in Europe and not in the Middle East? And how did knowledge of Islamic science get to Europe in the first place? The answers to these questions lie in one of the most beautiful cities on earth, the Queen of the Adriatic, Venice. Venice was founded on a swamp off the coast of Italy and felt itself separate from Europe and not bound by its laws and traditions. And as Shakespeare famously pointed out, the two most important aspects of Venice were its merchants and its long-standing links with the Arabs or Moors. It was a rich and complicated relationship, sometimes based on piracy and theft.
The story goes that in 828, two Venetian merchants stole the bones of a famous Christian saint from Venice's rival city across the water, Alexandria. The bones belonged to St. Mark the Evangelist, and they brought them back here to St. Mark's Square.
But without doubt, trade with the East brought to Venice great wealth and an exchange of ideas, customs, and people, as Venice expert Vera Costantini showed me.
So this is called Campo dei Mori because, as you can see, at the corners there are statues of what were called Moors.
Yeah. Oh, there's another.
Yeah, there's another one with a turban. The beard was recommended to Venetian merchants even when they went to the East. There were manuals written for Venetian merchants.
How to blend in.
How to, yes, you know, how to be respected in the East.
Yeah. Oh.
As Venetians traded more and more with their Muslim neighbors, the influence of Islam was more strongly felt. Arabic coffee culture became hugely popular, as did Islamic styles of architecture with their characteristic arches and decorations.
So the next thing I want to show you is the Palace of the Camel. When Venetians traded in the East, the unity of measurement of a load that could be loaded on a dromedary was called a carico. And it was the exactly same unity of measurement they had in the East, and it was called yoke.
So it's not coincidence that they...
No, it's not,
that they
of course.
actually imported that unit of
Yes,
weight.
of measurement, yeah, of weight.
And with the Arabic trade came the Arabic books. The great 9th century Arabic text on algebra appeared in Latin in the 12th century. The same century saw the arrival of Arabic astronomical tables. And in the 15th century, the famous Canon of Medicine was first published in the West. And this influx of learning seems to coincide with a great historical shift. The engine of science begins to move west, from the Islamic world to Europe. That's where the great breakthroughs from the 1500s would mainly take place. I encountered an astonishing and very tangible symbol of this shift, and a really surprising clue as to why it happened, thanks to Professor Angela Nuovo from the University of Udine. 20 years ago, in this library on one of the islands of Venice, Angela discovered the only surviving version of a 500-year-old book.
And what did it feel like? I mean, this is a big
Yes.
discovery.
Yes, it was a great emotion. I remember it was July, very hot, like today, even hotter, and I felt cold at that moment, yes. And yes, it was a great emotion.
What she found was the very first printed copy of Islam's holy book, the Quran. This is the first time she's seen her Quran since she discovered it 20 years ago. But it struck me as strange that the world's first printed Quran was produced in Venice and not in the Islamic world. And it's obvious at first glance that it was printed by people who didn't speak Arabic very well.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawm ad-Din. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. It's, yeah, I mean, what strikes me is that it's written in what I would regard as almost childlike handwriting. It's clumsy.
Yeah. Well, it's the first attempt to reproduce the handwriting in movable types. And as you know, the language has an enormous amount of sorts, different sorts, as, of course, every letter changes according to ligatures and the position
of course. So
in the line.
The word dhalika, which means for that, the dash should be underneath the L here, but it's above it.
Yeah.
So instead of saying dhalika, it says dhalaka, which is wrong.
Probably there were not people really